because the world is looking for energy, for more petrochemicals, for more LNG. This is not an industry in decline, but it is one of the industries that is strategic to world energy security. And Alberta is one of the most responsible producers of energy in the world and has been for decades. And we expect the federal government to stand up for our world-leading oil and natural gas workers instead of trying to eliminate their jobs. So thank you. Just transition is the language that they used when they phased out the coal industry. It is a social justice term. If they wanted to talk about sustainable jobs, that's completely different. And we'd be quite happy to talk to them about sustainable jobs in cars. To use that terminology, they're virtue signaling to an extreme base that is openly advocating to shut down oil and natural gas. Because look at what happened at a COP27. The final communique talked about ultimately shutting down the oil and natural gas industry in the same way that coal had been phased out. We think that the world is going to need more natural gas. We believe that with carbon capture technology, it's going to make it more and more sustainable. Hydrogen at its base, the best way to make it is out of methane, which is natural gas. When you look at our oil sands producers, they have an aggressive strategy to reduce emissions and use more bitumen beyond combustion. There's a petrochemical industry that we've been supporting here. So we're just shifting the paradigm. This is not about phasing out any of these jobs. It's about growing them and expanding the opportunity for oil and natural gas workers. And so until you have a situation where you've got solar and concrete and transportation fuels and fiberglass that are emissions-free, those are not emissions-free sources of production. And besides that, they're intermittent. So because they're intermittent, you have to build 3 times as many of them. And when you have to build 3 times as many of them, you're eating up a lot of landscape. And when you're eating up a lot of landscape and putting these turbines up, well, now you're also putting, if they're in the path of migratory birds, you're killing birds and bats. And why aren't we talking about all of the environmental impacts that come from that so that we can have a fulsome discussion? This is the thing that
well, look, I think part of the reason is that people are looking for easy moral virtue, you know. And
this is the emotional piece that everybody cares about. I mean, I was born in 71. The first Earth Day was 1970. So I grew up surrounded by that environmental messaging. And I think we have ceded the ground to the extremists like Extinction Rebellion, and we haven't elevated the more moderate environmental voices. And that to me is going to be my big challenge, is that I want people to understand that yes, we can provide energy security. Yes, we can address issues of affordability, and we can do it in a way that is going to be the most environmentally responsible, bar none, looking at all of the other options and all of the other producers around the world. That is going to be, I think, our big communication and environment, especially in our northern climates, January, February, March, April. It's dangerous not to have reliable power, not to be able to have reliable home heating. And we have to be mindful that, as you say, the people most impacted by that are the ones at the lower end of the income scale. And so if you are forcing a senior citizen to make a choice of reducing their food bill or reducing their pharmaceuticals so that they can keep their electricity and their heating on, those are not decisions that any government should be forcing their people to make. But that's the decision this is logically where the policies of those on the extreme green left have led to, is that they are now sacrificing those at the lower end of the income scale, which they put their heart on the sleeve and they say that that's who they care about. But it is just demonstrably untrue when you see the impact of it. And I don't know why it's so hard to get these messages out. It does seem, and maybe it is, that we're facing something that is more of a culture war underneath the surface, that we think it's about solving environmental issues, and we think it's about caring for those who are vulnerable, and we think it's about obliterating international poverty, and it's not. It's about something else altogether. And I would say I need to be very, very clear, because I know the world keeps on talking about some transition to some other fuel that might someday exist in the future. And I'm going to tell you that our messaging here is going to be very, very different. We are not going to transition out of oil or natural gas. We're going to transition away from emissions. We're going to produce these products in a way that has lower and lower emissions, and we've got great technology to be able to do it. We're learning how to capture CO2 and to embed it into products to make them more durable, or bury them underground. We're talking about developing out our hydrogen economy. LNG is going to be one way that we're able to reduce more polluting fuels around the world and reduce global emissions. But when you start doing all of these things, one of the things I don't think is well understood is that out of a barrel of oil comes about 6,000 different products. And not all of them are combustion, about 70% of them aren't. We've got lubricants and plastics and building material, asphalt. So even the enthusiasts of zero-emission vehicles, they're going to need roads to drive them on, which means that we are going to need to produce bitumen. And if we can produce bitumen with lower and lower emissions, then this is a win for everybody. This is a win for the environment, it's a win for the economy, it's a win for affordability, it's even a win for the environmentalists, though they don't realize this. And so we need to get away from any notion that these fuels are going to be kept in the ground. I think it's as ludicrous to talk about phasing out oil and natural gas as it is ludicrous to talk about phasing out concrete